Hey guys, what's up? In this video, I'm going to go over some of the pros and cons of the PSVR, and I'm going to try to describe it in as much detail as I can to give you the best possible understanding of how it works and the effects of using it and so on. So without wasting any time, let's start off with the cons. Now the graphics aren't amazing. Compared to a standard PS4 game, the graphics are nothing to gawk at, and this may turn some people off. Not to say that they're bad by any means, but when it comes to the overall resolution and the anti-aliasing, it is quite evident that these games are made with frames per second at the utmost importance during development, and for that reason, other graphical elements do have to suffer. Certain scenes and motions can cause discomfort quite easily. Now, I'm a very tolerable person when it comes to motion sickness. Boats, trains, roller coasters, you name it, I'm good. Spin me around in a chair 50 times, I'm good. I also hardly ever get headaches, not even after heavy nights of drinking or anything like that. But there's something about VR that has rendered me a tiny bit uncomfortable a fraction of the time. And let me stress that, a fraction of the time. And I feel like I am getting more used to it the more I play. But I noticed two types of scenarios where some minor nausea and minor dizziness caused a bit of discomfort for me. The first time it happened was when I was playing the Luge demo, and this has extended into any other game where you have to turn around curves. It seems like there's a short circuit in your brain wiring which causes your body to react in a slight state of discomfort, and this happens because when you're going around a curve in virtual reality, your eyes believe that it's actually happening, and your mind believes what your eyes are seeing. However, your body is not feeling the adverse effects of the inertia that would naturally be caused by taking the curve in real life. And since your brain is so used to a combination of signals and physical movements every time your body goes around a curve in real life, it has trouble figuring out why the physical aspect of the event is no longer matching the visual aspect of the event. So for this reason, your brain kind of short circuits because what's happening in the VR world appears realistic, but physically it feels sort of unnatural. Hope that makes sense. Now the second instance in which I felt discomfort while playing was during the demo for Scavenger's Odyssey, which is a space shooter where you get to pilot a mech. Now for the most part the demo was fine, but when it came to walking on walls or other vertical surfaces, my brain was struggling to understand how it was possible. Now we're hardwired to trust and believe in the physical laws of gravity, but in a game like Scavenger's Odyssey, those laws don't exist like they do in real life, so it causes some confusion in the brain. For example, there was a part where I was walking towards an edge, and my initial thought was that I would have to jump across to another platform. However, when I reached the edge, I just kept walking straight down the vertical wall, and since that is physically impossible to do in real life, my brain was like, wait a second, hold up, what the fuck is going on here? And it actually started to give me a minor headache. Now I continued the demo until I reached a spot where I was jumping from the floor onto the walls and back and forth vice versa, which was causing the whole world around me to spin and tilt accordingly, and my minor headache evolved into a mild headache, and at that point I didn't want to risk any more discomfort, so I removed the headset and I took a break from it completely. But as far as discomfort goes in the terms of nausea or dizziness, those are really the only two examples I can give you, and like I said, I want to stress that these things were minor, they weren't that bad, but the guides do say if you experience anything like that to remove the headset immediately and take a break. So that's what I did. I don't want to risk damaging my eyes or damaging my brain or anything like that. The controller's desyncing. Now this is something that has happened to me twice. The first time was during the London Heist demo, and the second time was during my first time playing Until Dawn Rush of Blood. So you probably know that the PlayStation camera tracks the movement of the controllers along with the headset, and it does a great job doing so. However, if you happen to turn around or for whatever reason you extend your controllers outside of the camera's field of view, it loses sight of it and thus loses its ability to track. And this causes your in-game hands to glitch out. Fortunately, these games are built with calibration procedures which can fix the problem quite easily, but it's still something that ultimately subtracts from the overall experience. Cinema mode isn't that great. Now I wasn't sure if I wanted to mention this or not because I haven't given cinema mode a completely fair chance yet, but my experiences with it so far are not that impressive. So far the only things I've done in cinema mode are play Infinite Warfare beta, and mess around in the PS4's dashboard, and both of those things look like they were running at a resolution close to about 480p. Now the smallest screen size in cinema mode looks to be equivalent to about a 60-inch television, at least from my perspective. They say that each person will have a different perspective of it, but that's how I see it. Now the medium-sized screen is about 100 inches big, as far if I were to compare it to a TV. Now the largest screen is very similar to a small movie theater sort of thing, which is quite large considering the resolution looks sub HD. I would say that cinema mode is quite unappealing to use. However, I have not been able to try Netflix or a Blu-ray movie in cinema mode because I have my HDCP turned off, and turning it on would mean having to reconfigure my entire setup, and I really don't feel like doing that. Now I discussed this on Twitter with Jose Betancourt, and he claimed that Netflix looked fine in cinema mode, and I for one would trust his opinion on the matter. And we compared it to watching it on a projector TV rather than a standard backlit TV, which isn't too bad. It might not be as crisp as a regular TV, but it's still watchable, it's still viewable, and it's still enjoyable. You can't see anything. Now I'm talking about your outside surroundings. When you have the headset on, you are completely blind to the outside world. You can't check your phone, you can't respond to comments if you're streaming, you can't really multitask at all. Once you're playing VR, that's all you can really do for that duration of time. Another annoying thing about this is that you have to put on your headset and pick up your controllers completely blind because you have to put your headset on first. Now unless you have them in a very accessible spot, you might struggle to find them. Now there's also a sense of vulnerability while you're in the VR because if you live with other people, family, siblings, you have to trust that no one's going to disturb you in any way. And this includes pets, of course, which is why they recommend you remove any pets from your VR playing space. The wires. We all know there's a lot of wires involved in the hookup for this device, but the only one that really matters at all is the one that dangles from the headset itself. Now I find it to be rather cumbersome considering the fact that many of the games and demos require you to move around, so unless you can find a place or a way to rest the wire in a way where it's not being obstructive, then it will most likely annoy the piss out of you at certain points. Not a huge problem, but it is a negative, so I gotta bring it up. Okay, so that's it for the cons as far as I'm concerned, so let's talk about the pros of the PSVR. It's incredibly responsive. Even though there is technically an approximate 18 milliseconds delay, the response feels instantaneous. When you move, it moves. And this goes for everything, the head mount, the Move controllers, and the DualShock 4. The 18 milliseconds of latency is way too low for anyone's brain to pick it up, so the movement truly feels one-to-one. When you move, it moves. This device is impressively immersive. Now I could probably talk about this all day long, but in all honesty, it won't mean a thing until you try it for yourself. Now the best types of games are those in which you are in a cockpit such as Eve Valkyrie, Riggs, Drive Club, or even in a cart like Rush of Blood, because being in a seated position in real life as well as in the game is something that helps and adds to the overall immersion and experience of virtual reality. However, there are other types of immersion as well. For example, in the demo for Wayward Sky or Alumet, it felt more like I was some sort of god or something like that, and I was able to look down into a world where other characters were living and interacting. The best way to maybe describe this would be to imagine a 3D platforming game such as Ratchet and Clank, and imagine yourself inside the world with the characters rather than just viewing them on a 2D screen. It truly, honestly makes you feel and believe like you were there, and it's often jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, breathtaking, and ultimately it's just an amazing experience. Porn is gonna be next level shit. Now as far as I know, there is no way to watch porn in virtual reality with this device yet. However, we know it's coming at some point. There is, however, an app that is free to download called Video VR. And in this app, there are a ton of different 360-degree videos that you can watch. And like the games, there is also a very immersive sense of being there. Now, among these videos, there are roller coaster rides, underwater dives with sharks, and marine life. And there's also a whole bunch of videos with women dancing. For example, I watched one where I was in the middle of a dance studio and there was about 20 women all around me dancing. Now I could turn around full 360 degrees, and I was in that room surrounded by dancing girls. Now again, the resolution isn't as crisp as on a TV, but it still looked good enough to believe that I was in the same room as these ladies. It's quite a surreal experience too, because they're dancing for the camera, so it feels like they're actually dancing specifically for you, since they're looking directly at you, they're gesturing at you, and they're even saying things to you. And I gotta say, while I was watching these chicks twerk and grind and all that stuff, I was thinking that porn in VR is gonna be a game changer, like next level shit. But yo, it doesn't even end there. I started thinking, what if they extended this to sports? You know, what if they somehow were able to put a 360-degree camera in the middle of a basketball court or a hockey arena or a football field? Now imagine watching the game from the field itself, literally smack dab in the middle of the action. And this is something that I can see happening in the not too distant future, and I think that would be pretty damn cool. The last pro I want to mention here is that it's comfortable. The design of this device is impressive to say the least. The way it goes on your head and adjusts to your face, the way you can wear it comfortably with glasses, the way the weight is evenly distributed, the way the headset fits over top of it, the padding of the forehead area, as well as the back of the head strap, the little rubber flaps around the eye lens that block out the light from your perimeter of the device. I mean, everything about this thing was carefully planned and crafted to fit with the utmost level of comfort. And so far, my longest play session has been a stint of over 3 hours, in which I never once felt the device was getting heavy or uncomfortable on my head, no strain on my neck or my spine or anything like that. I also like to wear hats, and it's not very often that I'm seen without a hat. So fortunately for me, this device also fits very comfortably right over my hat as well. So guys, that pretty much wraps up my video here with the pros and cons of the PSVR. If I find any more pros or cons with this device, the longer I use it, I'll be sure to make a follow-up video. But so far, the biggest con for this thing is that, you know, you can get mild nausea or mild dizziness while playing. But that seems to be something that I seem to be getting used to the more I play. The biggest pro for this device is that it is incredibly immersive. Like, you won't even believe how immersive it is. I mean, if you guys watch me streaming the Until Dawn Rush of Blood demo, you can see me moving back and forth trying to avoid these spinning saws and these big things that were coming out at me. It feels like you're there. It feels like things are coming at you. The sense of immersion is unbelievable, and that's what this device is meant to do. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. So if you stayed here and checked this out, thank you for watching. Until next time, villains, I'm Vile Self. Later.